I shall briefly take a short time to introduce Khekho, the tiger challenger, what it really is about and how it all began. The idea for this book took birth on a pleasant autumn evening of 2019. I cannot recollect how it all began, but I vividly remember Dilly sharing the story of his great-grandfather with great gusto, hypnotizing me into the extraordinary life of the legend he is named after. Being a great storyteller as he is, I began to visualize every scene of the forlorn era, one we didn't have the chance to experience. It was evident how much he looked up to the namesake he never met. In the end, he sighed with a deep melancholy and said, "I wish to have a small book written about my great-grandfather. I don't want his legacy to become a forgotten history." And thus began our hunt to dig more into the life of Khekho, a man who earned his own surname. The journey has been an emotional trip of learning from the man who was unfettered by the blind beliefs of the crowd, unshaken by peer pressure, and unafraid of challenging the norms of the world he lived in. When we talk about Naga history, it is perceived as one encompassed by myths and legends, but we cannot overlook them whilst trying to understand where we came from. Contrary to the commonly placed ideal that folk narratives are mythical, the allegories contain truths one cannot demur. The most precious heirloom indigenous people can inherit from their parents is the oral narratives of their ancestors. Oral tradition is a deeply rooted culture, diligently passed on from one generation to the next with great care. That way, focus is placed on the emotions and not the pompous way of stomping facts and figures. Rather than making the new generation memorize the stories of the bygone era, they are well preserved and transferred in its physical form by way of eye contact and body language, to assert the value in a person through the narratives. In fact, such anecdotes are better preserved because they keep the accounts in its original form as best as possible. With the onset of modern education, oral tradition is also a dying art, facing dire threats, and with it, our only medium in keeping our history alive. Efforts are needed to keep the narratives going. This book is an oral biography. This is the story of Dilly in particular, but this is also the story of tiger's intricate relationship with man, traveling back a century down the memory lane of our ancestors of Naga tribe, anecdotes which survived the cruel passage of time, untouched, unaffected by the fast-developing world. This is an effort to bring the oral anecdotes into written form with the hope that it can survive for a few more generations, because they deserve to not only be heard, but be read too. I shall take a brief moment to just read an excerpt from the book. A lot of Naga tribes believe that the tiger is the older brother of man, and the tales of man's affinity with tiger have been retold for generations. At times, villages would be visited by tigers, trying to feast on domestic animals. Whenever that happens, people would gather with their spears, but never with the intention of touching the tiger, except to claim ownership of the land and their cattle, and to scare it away. During those times, every adult man would get into the front line and confront the tiger with war cries, pointing their spears towards the tiger and slowly pressing forward to gain ground and assert dominance until the tiger is left with no option but to leave. In the Naga dialect, Khekho means tiger challenger. In a society unconsciously bonded by such culture, Dilly was an explorer and a risk-taker, earning him a title only the legends are bestowed with. There are two main interpretations regarding how he earned the title. It all began on one of those days when a tiger attacked the village again, hunting for cattle. On that fateful day, the victim became Dili's cattle. One version claimed that his family was rearing the cattle as a wedding gift to his beloved sister, who was preparing to tie the knot. Another set of people believe that the cattle was a wedding gift by his in-laws when he got married. No matter the versions, it is evident that the cattle hold a special place in the heart of Dili's family, more because it was a gift. Cattle is the most prized gift a person could get in a lifetime. Thus, out of shame and anger, Dili rushed towards the tiger, who was taking a leave after the feast. Dili gave no second thought as he stood behind the tiger and called out to the culprit. He bravely stood his ground, raised his spear, and shouted, "Okay," which means tiger. "The cattle is no match for you. If you want to fight, fight me." The tiger turned back, made a brief eye contact with the furious Dili, and quietly continued walking into the forest until it disappeared. Had the tiger attacked, Dili was ready to face the consequences, but it wasn't his day.
By the little that Noko has read about, I believe that it's a way, folklore, the way of our ancestors, the way of our thought process, the way of our own family have been brought about in a very indigenous manner. And I pray that everyone should read it. I will also try to read it during my times when I'm a little bit free in the vehicles. And I would like to encourage many of us to also be good, enterprisers of such thought process. Many a times we see that the way of reading books has almost disappeared because of this mobile phone that we carry. And today, even for me, whatever little knowledge that I have is because of the books that I've read. I don't find it very comfortable to read the e-books in the mobile and all, but starting from current affairs or politics or policy or assertions to religion to culture or anything, I love to go through books in my own little sweet time, little bit, but I love to go through it, and then that's something which I think should still be to be inculcated among the newer generations. Because nowadays, from childhood to adulthood, people are mostly into mobiles and into all kinds of mobile readings. But to possess a book is first of all a great gift, and to be able to, because I believe that when reading a book, you get into it, you get into the character, which usually mobiles are not able to give it, even if it may be the same story. Even though I would encourage both of you to have it on e-book also, but still then, having a book and keeping it, whenever you see it, you still remember the character, you still remember the story, and it can be part and parcel of our life in many ways. Lastly, especially in Nagaland and among our Naga people, we have so much of storytelling, which we think that because of the Naga tribes that doesn't have a script, we think that that's our problem, that's our deprivation. But I believe it's not our deprivation, it is our strength. It is our strength. For thousands of years, our ancestors, till today, have been telling story, the word that comes out of the mouth to the next generation and next generation and next generation. And I pray that our younger generation should not be cut out of it. Living in Dimapur, Kohima, Bengaluru, Delhi, elsewhere in states or in Europe and everywhere, we miss out on such things. Whenever we go back to our villages, if we sit with our seniors, very elder generations, they have a way of telling their story about the folklore. I can very well understand about the character where tiger is taken as a brother, as a part and parcel of our Naga story. And if we were to tell certain stories to the rest of the country or the world, they wouldn't believe it. They'll take it as a myth. But we know the facts. And I pray that younger generation should, not try to much get into intellectual research about it, but be practical about it. We know in our villages still now, in Nagaland itself, there are some people still alive whose spirits are tigers. Now, scientifically, it is impossible. But practically, I can vouch that it is true. There are people whose spirits are tigers. And there are many more, especially in the eastern part of Nagaland, maybe some Chagasangs also, in Aus also. It is still existent. And we know how it is. So likewise, I think such kind of literature being written will actually enhance our heritage, our traditions, our folklore to the newer generation in a way and manner which our youngsters can understand.
Yeah, thank you.
Though it appears a small part that Khekho has read, though it appears that it's a form of continuation of the folk tales and the myths, it's not that. It's a book which is very nicely written in the form of the relationship between the individual, the family, the clan, the community, village and the environment. The whole book is a narrative of how the culture and the village life exists about. Of course, the main protagonist, Khekho, the story revolves around him. But the book also speaks about the traditional, the customs which are present in the village. She has mentioned about how Delhi got the title, Khekho, Tiger Challenger. So I won't go into that. But book mentions about he also getting a title of Orakho, something like Spirit Challenger. And the book describes him as a man which was very physically brave, strong, but it's not the physical strength of the man. What I felt more important was the ability to take risk, the ability to think rationally, ability to courageous enough at times to take stand, even going against the family, the village. Book mentions about Billy's grandfather to be one of the first Christian convert in your community, and for which he gets excommunicated from the village. Now, 100 years back, when Christianity was being welcomed in Nagaland, the land of the Nagas, may it in our community or any other communities, it would have required a lot of courage, a lot of passion, a lot of self-belief to go and accept a new faith. Now, in that circumstance, someone tries to follow his passion, which needs a lot of internal courage, it needs a lot of dedication to the thing that you believe. So, Mr. Khekho gets excommunicated, comes back to the village, and then he occupies a land which is believed to be, believed to be, I won't use the word infested, believed to be covered by the spirits. Right? That's what the title of aura. So that needs, a lot of internal strength and internal courage for individual, passion. I believe Delhi also has carried in some degree the same passion, the same ability to take risk. Knowing him for last 8 years, is it? And knowing him that he was in academics initially and then left academics and came back and started his own passion of cafe here. This runs in the generations, this runs in the family. The fact that he came up with this idea of writing a book, it's not only about your grandfather, it's about preserving, protecting your traditional history, preserving your knowledge of your village, your tribe, and its relationship with the natural and individual habitats.
Yeah, I was hearing you earlier.